Howdy howdy on this wonderful Easter. I just came back from the range. I'm going to have myself some Java and enjoy the weather. Pretty windy out there today. So I did not do a video on the range, okay, but I wanted to touch base on some observations I made when I was out there. So today I took out the 9mm, the 45, 40, my two XDMs, the 1 and 9, 1 and 40, and my 1911, and set my targets out at 15, 20, and 60 yards. So anyway, on the process of hitting those targets, I also put out one of my pepper poppers at 60 yards, and had some fairly good success. I found that the 40 was much more flatter shooting and tended to hit solid and knock my steel down without any problems. But the 9mm, although it could get that far, obviously, it had problems hitting the steel, knocking the steel over, okay, with enough momentum. The 45 had no problems. So on the 45, the 1911, and it hit the steel, steel's going down, okay. So that's 60 yards. 40 yards, pretty much the same thing. I noticed on some of my sights are a little different, so I basically shoot close in, so my sights are set for about 2 inches high at 25 yards. So I found at 40 yards and at 60 yards that made a pretty big difference on the 9 and on the 45. So the 45 at 50 yards was probably shooting about 12 inches, a little over 12 inches high. The 9mm was shooting about the same. Okay. So a couple of things. It's important to understand that you need to go out and shoot your firearms at various distances, including long distance. 50 yards is kind of the max for most people thought about self-defense, but you should have a handgun that you feel confident you can get your shots in the center mass of the chest at 50 yards on a stationary target, okay? From behind cover or whatever. So that brought to mind why everybody in Arizona that I know shoots a 45 ACP, because we used to do a lot of steel back in the day, and you could not knock the steel over with that piss pot 9mm at 50 yards. Okay, and I just reiterated that when it came back into my mind. I go, oh yeah, you know, I know now why we don't use the 40. I'm sorry, a 9mm at 50 yards. And the 40, plenty of power, 180 grain bullet, no problem. The 45, 200 grain bullet, you know, shooting about 1,000 feet per second, no problem. Okay. So that brought up another thing I was thinking about is, you know, a lot of these self-defense magazines and the writers thereof, you know, they talk about self-defense primarily between here and the vehicle, you know, which is about 7 yards, 25 yards, maybe max. And they never really talk about bullet performance at distance, okay? Now, I know we talked about revolvers last week where he used to say, you need a revolver, and why you needed the power factor and distance, but you need to consider that for your primary handgun as well. You should be able to train and practice and get good hits at 50 yards without any problems, and it should knock steel down reliably at that distance, have enough power factor to get the job done when it gets there, and I don't feel the 9mm has that, okay? So, if you're talking about an all-around handgun and you're going to carry a semi-automatic, you need to consider the 40 and up. If it doesn't start with a 4, it's probably not going to get the job done, okay? So just some food for thought, that reiterating from past experience from Arizona, Cactus Match League, and a few other places, and it really brought back memories, brought the point home of why I carry a 40, 44, 45. I do not carry a 9mm as a general rule, okay? And now I remember why, okay? So go out and get some long-range practice with your handgun, and you know, get it done. Get confident at 50 yards, and when you can shoot well, anywhere between 0 and 50 yards with your primary self-defense gun, and you got confidence in the power factor of that particular handgun, you're good to go, okay? So just some food for thought. James Hartley, Idaho Defense. I will be chatting with you next time. Have a great